I want to tell you about a phone call that cost the company a month. Not a bad phone call, a completely normal one. A supplier calls up ahead of a contract renewal and says, "We're putting our prices up." Happens every day. And the team on the other end, they're good at their jobs. They just need one number before they respond. What are we actually paying this supplier today? Across every site, every building, everything. One number. It took them almost a month to find it. And by the end of this episode, you will know exactly why that happens, why it's probably happening in your company right now, and the 4 steps to make sure that number takes you on an afternoon instead. Welcome back to the Data Edge. I'm Stephanie Wiechers. If you're new here, a quick version of who I am. I run Pearstop. We make the mess that procurement teams in facilities, construction, and infrastructure are sitting on. Thousands of invoices, quotes, spreadsheets, all describing the same things in different words, and we turn it into clean, organized information that you can actually make decisions with. The funny thing about how this started is our first 2 clients paid us before we built anything. There was no product yet. The pain was just that acute that they wanted it solved badly enough to go first. These days, the product actually exists, and honestly, it's so satisfying watching teams get in an afternoon what used to take those clients weeks. So the problem in today's episode is quite literally the thing I look at every single day. Right, back to the phone call. Let me actually put you in the room because I think it's easier to picture than to just describe it. It's someone on that commercial team, laptop open, 3 tabs. Tab 1 is the finance system showing the invoices. Tab 2 is a shared drive folder called something like Supplier Rates Final V3, last edited by someone who left the company 18 months ago. Now, tab 3 is their inbox, searching for a quote that was emailed over some time in the last 2 years. Then on the desk next to them, a lever arch folder of signed contracts, because, half of this predates the actual shared drive. So, the number they needed? It existed. All of it. Every pound they'd spend was written down somewhere in that room. The problem was the word somewhere. So here's what they actually found once they laid it all out. Take a hard services contractor. Say it's called something like Apex Building Services. They're doing HVAC and fire safety maintenance across their sites. In the finance system, they appear as Apex Building Services Limited. Now, in the contracts folder, they're Apex FM. And on a chunk of older invoices, they're still listed under the name of a smaller company that Apex acquired 2 years ago. So this is the same supplier under 3 names. The system has no idea it's paying one company 3 times over. And then the service itself. One line says quarterly PPM inspection. Another says planned preventative maintenance visit. And a third one just says PPM. So obviously this is the same service, 3 descriptions, and whoever built the spreadsheet has no way of knowing they were the same thing unless they happen to remember. Or in other words, a person looking at this kind of sees, right? This is obvious. Okay, these are the same services. But if we're trying to filter through a spreadsheet, everything that's described differently and uses abbreviations or not is really, really hard to put in the same bucket. So the information existed, it just didn't agree with itself. Now, if you work in procurement in facilities or construction, I would bet you money you know this feeling. Maybe not, the dramatic month-long version, but the everyday version. Someone asks, "Can you just pull what we spend on cleaning?" And your heart sinks a little bit because just is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. And here's a twist. The bit that most companies get wrong. They think this is a reporting problem. So they buy a dashboard, a shiny tool with charts and nice graphs. We have Power BI now, so all of our problems are going to be solved, right? But a dashboard built on messy data is just messy data with better fonts and nice charts and good colors. The charts may look confident, but when the numbers underneath are still arguing with each other, that's not a reporting problem. That's an organizing problem. And organizing problems have a fix. So there's 4 steps to it, and I'm going to walk you through them. Step 1. Fix the supplier first, before you touch anything else. So the supplier list is the key and the foundation that this is built on. So remember Apex Building Services, Apex FM, and the old acquired company name? That's the thing that poisons every number downstream. You think you spend 200 grand with them, but your actual spend is 600, split across 3 versions of the same company. So go through the supplier list and merge the duplicates. The legal name, the trading name, the company you acquired that still invoices under its old name, the one that's spelled with an ampersand in one system and then the word and in the other. I mean, is this boring work? Yeah. It's like at the same time, the highest return hour that you'll spend on your data. So everything in this episode gets easier once you have done this and consolidated all those suppliers and really made sure this is a perfect list. Here's the proof it pays for itself. We once ran a supplier audit for a maintenance contractor purely to clean up the names. In the process of doing this, we found fuel surcharges, small line items stacked onto call-out invoices. They were scattered across dozens of bills that no one had ever added up in one place. So that is not analysis finding money. That's literally just tidying up finding money just by making the list agree with itself. Now, step 2. Decide how you're going to group what you buy. Or, in other words, decide your categories. Most companies do one of 2 things here, and both go wrong. So either they have no grouping at all, or maybe they borrow the finance team's account codes. And so finance codes, they answer a finance question. Where does this sit in the accounts? They can't answer your question, what do we buy, from whom, and at what price? So build your own set of categories. And before you tune out, hang in here for a second. My advice is do not invent this from scratch. There are ready-made international systems that are meant for grouping what companies buy. The big one is designed by the United Nations. It's called UNSBSC. And the beauty of starting there is that your suppliers, your benchmarks, and any tool you buy later, they already speak that language. And then another advantage of it is that it comes in multiple levels. So whenever you say, okay, I've got these suppliers, there's a level to group those, and there's a level to go more granular, which means that for everyone, there is a flavor that works. But here's the important bit. So this system is very comprehensive, and it's essential to trim it hard. The system contains over 150,000 categories. You don't need them. You need maybe 40 to 80 categories where your money actually goes. So ruthless is the word here. By the way, this grouping structure has a proper name. It's called a taxonomy. So if you ever hear someone say spend taxonomy in a meeting, that's all it is. Categories for what you buy. So now you can nod knowingly. Then step 3. And this is where I see the most heartbreak. Do not go too deep. There is a failure pattern that goes like this. A team gets excited. They decide to organize everything perfectly. They start labeling every individual product, like this is a lamp, this is a bucket of 50 liters, this is a bottle of toilet cleaner, this is an aluminium eye profile. And then what's going to happen is they drown in edge cases. And the team then quietly abandons the whole project by month 3. I've watched it happen more times than I can count. So let me make this real with a project that we did. Huge construction company. I'm not going to name them, so let's call them Crane and Able. Thousands of suppliers, hundreds of thousands of invoice lines, scaffolding hire, concrete, side cabins, plant hire, sealant, safety gloves, the lot. So now, the tempting way to do a project like this is to do it all at once. Take every line, throw it at the full system of 150,000 categories, boom, done. Here's what actually happens when you do that. The system starts making choices that are technically possible, but obviously wrong. So we found work gloves ordered from a builder's merchant for a site team, classified under medical gloves, the surgical kind. So technically, on an item level, sure, they're both gloves, but this is a construction company. No one at Crane and Able is performing surgery. And that is not a one-off. That's what 150,000 options guarantees. Give anything, human or software, that many choices, no guardrails, and you get very confident nonsense. So here is what we learned, and this is the move. Go top down. Start with the suppliers that we've cleaned in step 1 because you fixed them. So then assign each supplier to a high-level branch first. The scaffolding hire company lives in the construction services branch. The cleaning contractor lives in the facility services branch. That one decision does massive work because now, when you drill down to an individual invoice line rather than a scaffolding company, you're not choosing between 150,000 different categories anymore. You're choosing between about 10, and all of them are scaffolding adjacent. So the branch has already ruled out medical gloves before you even start. And a project that would have collapsed under its own edge cases actually gets finished. So here is the test to remember. Would I ever negotiate at this level? You negotiate cleaning services per type of site. You do not negotiate individual mop heads. Group things at the level where a real decision lives. For most companies in facilities and construction, that's 2 or 3 levels of detail. That's it. One honest note is some very large teams do eventually need that item level detail for comparing rates, checking agreed prices against what's actually charged, benchmarking against the wider market. And that is real, and it's also doable. It's actually something that we do a lot of, but it's the second step, always. The tree first and then the leaves. So, final step, step 4. What do you do with invoice lines that say almost nothing? You know the ones. Works as per quote, monthly charge, attended site, issue resolved. Thanks. Very helpful. So most people look at those lines and they give up. But here's the reframe. Those lines aren't dead ends, they are clues. Take the attended site, issue resolved line. So on its own, this is useless. But it's got a supplier on it. Say it's a fire safety contractor. Site, we've got an amount, £45. And we've got a date in the middle of a working week. So put those together, and then it's almost certainly a reactive call out, not planned maintenance, and it's definitely not a big capital job. So the words may say nothing, but the surrounding facts say plenty. This is detective work. You're not reading one column and hoping. You are looking across everything you know about that line, and you're letting the evidence point you somewhere. The last thing, and this one's about your sanity, you will never get to 100%, and you shouldn't try. Aim to confidently organize about 95% of your spend by value. Put the messy tail on the box marked later. Because here is the truth. A number covering 95% that you trust beats a number covering everything that you don't. And that trustworthy number, that has a name too. It's called a cost baseline. It's your starting point. The number that every negotiation, every benchmark, every budget conversation stands on. So one more thing worth saying, getting this right usually isn't a one-shot job. On that Crane Enable project, the rulebook we used went through 3 full versions before it was right. If your first attempt needs revising, that is not failure. That's just what this looks like. And once you have that trustworthy number, everything changes shape. Go back to that room at the start of this episode, the laptop, the 3 tabs, and the lever arch folder. Now, imagine one clean number sitting where all of that used to be. That renewal call that took a month becomes an afternoon. You walk into the supplier conversation with your own number instead of reacting to theirs. And honestly, the conversations get better. They don't get harsher. Because when you can say, here's what we see, walk us through your side, that is not a fight. That is a grown-up conversation between partners. Good data doesn't damage supplier relationship. It's actually what makes the good ones possible. Now, if you are listening to this thinking, okay, but where do I actually start? Everything you need is in the show notes. A free interactive tool launching next week that does steps 2 and 3 for you, plus the full written guide and some free resources, real before and after case studies, and a tool that shows you where the value is hiding in your spend. So one tap and you got it all there. That's it for this episode. And can I just say, the fact that you stuck around for a full episode around organizing invoice data tells me everything I need to know about you. You're exactly the kind of person who actually fixes things instead of buying another dashboard. And honestly, you're my favorite kind of listener. See you next week on the Data Edge.